Welcome to the Islamic Library Association. We are dedicated to showcasing Muslims' rich contributions to literature and society while advocating for accurate representation and equity in libraries. Hello and Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khalisah Harris. I am a librarian and the founder of the Islamic Library Association. Through this work, we advocate for equity in libraries and public spaces, ensuring Muslims are represented accurately, respectfully, and with the depth they deserve. In this Ally series, we speak with library professionals who recognize the importance of representation, access, and accountability in libraries. Together, we explore how intentional practice, creativity, and community engagement help shape more equitable environments for everyone. Today's guest brings an important and expansive perspective to this conversation, and I'm honored to share it with you. Today, we are here with Miss Kelly Coffey, who is an inquisitive librarian, innovative artist, and creative coach who mentors youth, families, emerging artists, and professionals through visual performance and STEM-based arts. Her work centers on empowering individuals to build strong communities through cultural programming, shared resources, and meaningful collaboration. Guided by a deep commitment to mental and behavioral health equity, Kelly weaves creativity, education, and advocacy into every facet of her work. She believes in the transformative power of art as a tool for healing, connection, and growth, and lives by the principle that art heals. Hello, Kelly. How are you today?
Hello, hello. I'm well, thank you. And thank you so much for having me as part of your series.
Thank you. I'm so happy you could be a part of it. I'm excited that you're able to share a moment of your time with us. So let's just dive right into this. To begin, could you tell us a bit about your journey as a librarian, artist, and creative coach, and how these roles came together in your work?
Sure. I have pretty much always worked in libraries. I grew up around libraries. My mom volunteered for the library I'm now working at, so she would take me with her. I worked in my high school and college libraries. I then wound up moving after college. I wound up working at Salt Lake City Public Library for almost 7 years. That's really where I decided that I wanted to get the degree. I wanted to be a master's in library sciences. And since then, I've worked in several different libraries, different capacities as a music librarian, as a medical librarian. I've been in publishing, which I think is the other side of the coin. And it's just been wonderful.
Well, you've had an expansive career. I think it's great, especially being able that you have done publishing. I didn't even know that, so that's awesome. You kept that one a secret, but now everyone does. But yes, so that's amazing. So you said that you volunteered. Where your mom volunteered, you were in different libraries, but you said you were in Salt Lake City. Do you know a man named Dr. Safi?
I feel like it sounds familiar, but not off the top of my head.
He was a manager at one of the branches at Salt Lake City Library.
Oh my gosh, I do.
Yes,
Wait, Coffee, yes.
yes,
We
yes,
did work together. I was there from 2003 to 10, and I do remember him.
yes. He was there. He just retired in
Oh my God,
August, I think. Hmm.
that's so interesting. The world is so small.
Yes.
I
So,
totally, yeah, he was, he, I, what I absolutely remember and is coming up is that he was just the kindest, sweetest person. He was He is like the person you would go to when you were dealing with some big challenge because he's just like, okay, I got this. Like he's just very really mellow, even-tempered, and he's very tolerant. Yeah, I absolutely do remember him. That's so interesting.
What's even more interesting, his interview is coming out today. I interviewed him.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Wild.
His interview comes out today at 2 o'clock.
Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, I cannot wait to watch it. That is so neat. What a connection.
Yes. See? This is amazing.
It is. It feels really faded. I just like that's so I'm like, wow. I feel like we've had this conversation before because we've spoken a few times. But I think we had the conversation where the world is really big, but it also is really small. Like it's really easy to make these connections, especially in the library world. So that's really like I'm really honored. I already was, but now I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And I didn't even know you were in Salt Lake City. So all these things are coming together. So this is an eventful day already.
Yeah.
So you worked in different types of libraries. You're in a public library now, correct?
Yes.
So with the work that you do now and the work that you do between libraries, art, and STEM, how does that look? Or how do these tasks inform each other? Because it's kind of like a big circle. How do they work together to help you do what you do in public libraries?
For me, it they really overlap. We're all we all have our own personalities, our own interests, and our own preferences. We all speak different languages. I think technology is a different language than arts, then is a different language than science, engineering. However, we're all still kind of speaking the same language when I think about it. Um, it's just about meeting people where they are. So, for example, when a patron comes in and they have like a more creative based question, I know that I'm going to approach it in a creative way. Maybe
Mhm.
someone's maybe when I do my programming, I might try to overlap them. So instead of coloring pages, I might try to say, let's do some Procreate digital based art, which is overlapping because it's both creative and technology. I know, for example, the children's librarian does a building blocks activity every Wednesday. For me, that's a perfect example of art meets science and STEM because they're using blocks, they're playing with their creativity, but they're also using motor skills that help them critically think about what they're trying to do. Are they making a spaceship out of Legos that moves or like a car, or how do they get those components to work? So when I think about it, it's kind of for me just one big thing. But it's interesting because the truth is, it could be dissected, and as you said, each thing is kind of its own thing. But for me, they all just sort of go into like a flower, like you got the center circle and then everything, the petals around it. So that's how I see it, is that it's more like that.
Okay, creative brain. Okay, I see. I see. You mentioned how you meet people where they are. And each patron will have a different need or a different personality and things like that. How do you define your role as an ally to underrepresented communities, including Muslim patrons within libraries?
One of the things I've been really aware of is just my behavior and how I treat people, whether it's conscious or subconsciously. I think it's really important. I think optics are important, even though I don't like that. I get like it's hard to really maintain a certain thing, but subconsciously, I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing, that I'm not necessarily just saying hello to patrons that I know or that I see every day. I try to make sure that every person that walks through the door gets some sort of eye contact. Hello, how are you? Even if they look like they're not interested, I want people to know that I am still there for them. I think that I've become a lot more conscious of um, when I make exceptions, like who am I making exceptions for? Am I making exceptions for people that look like me, or am I making exceptions for everybody who's asking the same favor? So when people want more computer time or need extra printing, who am I giving that to? And that's something that's become really critical for me, is making sure. I think this came up. This is something that's happened a few times where patrons, if they forget their IDs, they come to the desk, or they forget their library card, they need an ID to come to the desk. And I recently had two Muslim girls, they were high school students, and neither one of them had any photo ID, nothing at all that could verify who they were so I can pull their cards. And I remember sitting there feeling really self-conscious, like, oh, and I said to them, like, hey, everybody needs their card or their ID, and you need, just give me anything with your photo and name on it so I can give you the card. I'm not, and I said to them, like, I'm not, this isn't like a personal thing. I am really strict about this. I said, the other option you have is to try the other librarian. She might just do it, but I can't. And there, so for me, that was really hard. I don't want to turn people away ever. And I felt really self-conscious about it. Like, oh, am I a white woman denying these girls their library cards because they're Muslim? Or I didn't want to think that way, but I was aware of it. I was thinking about it, because the truth is, it doesn't matter who was standing in front of me, blonde hair, blue eyes, or any person. It doesn't matter. I am very strict about that. So they did come up with something, and the one girl had her mom email or text her a photo of the ID. I was like, that works. I'll do that. No problem. Like, I can make that exception. I can see your face. I can see your name. That's what I asked for. That's what I need. That's what I want from everybody. So, that is that's what I've been really focused on, is making sure that subconsciously I'm not doing anything that would contradict what I'm trying to do, and that is create an equal environment and comfortable and safe for everyone.
I'm so happy that you mentioned your exceptions. And what I mean by that is, I've brought up in managers' meetings before how um, some staff from a different department, I had noticed some things. I saw how the exceptions were going. If I can notice it and I'm not there very often, that means this is happening a lot. And it's obviously not being addressed. So I brought it up to the manager that he should really watch how his staff deals with patrons, because I've seen too many inconsistencies. And he said, well, how would I know that? Watch your staff. You can see a pattern. I was talking about people lose their password or to get into their email.
Yep.
And let's say one person would come in, oh, I forgot my password. Oh, you don't know your password? Okay, you can try to click find and they can send you the code to your cell phone. Oh, you don't have that cell phone? Well, we can't help you. But then someone else will come ask the same question. Oh, did you try it? Oh, you have a different cell phone? Okay, do you know where that cell phone is? Okay, maybe you can email me that and then I'll print it off for you. And so now there's too many inconsistencies, because I've seen you do this several times and I noticed a pattern. So I brought it up to the manager and he was like looking confused. So my point in that is, I think it's very important that you brought up that you try to stay consistent, and there are exceptions, but you stay within your realm of how you operate and deal with people no matter who they are. And that's really part of equity. That's
Yep.
what it looks like. Equality and equity are two different things. And to give the same amount of consideration with an exception. I think that's amazing and a great example of to help keep things to help have order. People know what to expect, not only from librarians but also from themselves. When I come to the library, I know that I have to have either my library card or my ID. It's and it just it removes people feeling some kind of way, because the base has been established and they'll see it being used across the board. So I think that's just great. And Muslims specifically, and it's amazing how you mentioned how, from
Yep.
your perspective, that you felt self-conscious. But as long as you know that you do this across the board, it is what it is. And speaking about Muslims specifically, who oftentimes already feel like, uh, you know,
Yep.
you don't want to enhance those feelings and instead minimize it. And I think by allowing her mom to send a picture really minimize those feelings. I mean, if that's how they felt.
Mhm.
And but in general, with what all you do in libraries, and like you said, you have the Muslim girls coming up. Do you feel Muslims in general are adequately represented through library collections or programs?
No, I don't. I have to share something with you that happened this week, actually. So a couple of months ago, a patron came in and I was sitting at the reference desk. My manager was sitting at the customer service desk, and this girl just like she was yelling. She was screaming and she was like, where is the literature? And she wasn't, I don't know any, I can't tell you who she was or what her background was. Um, when I looked at her, I thought maybe she was Latina. I don't know. But she was really upset that there was no representation for Muslims and that she was like screaming, free Gaza, where is your content? Where are your books? Where are your displays? And I was like, you go, girl. But then she kind of went off the rails a little bit where she's like, I do this, I volunteer here, and none of those things seemed relevant to her message. I was like, okay, I don't know what now you've lost me a little bit. But I agree with you on the other stuff. So she left and my manager was just like, hey, I can't control anything. Like if someone checked out the books that we may have put on display, like, but there was no display. And I don't ever recall really seeing a display personally. So the girl to me was justified in being upset. I don't agree with how she went about it. She didn't, when she started to yell, it seemed like she lost my manager's attention.
Mhm.
So that was a few months ago. And again, that always sat with me. I was like, gosh, what can I be doing better? So then
Mhm.
fast forward to a few weeks ago, I did Sunday service with two colleagues that I don't work with in the same branch, just in the system. And it
Mhm.
was during Muslim American Month. And we had the list, the book list. And I went through, I got what we could, but I felt like it was really limited. I was like, where are the books? Like, this is it? Like, I remember opening the list. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna open. I volunteered to do the book buying, and I just felt like we already had multiple copies of every single book on the list, and it was a small list. So when I was talking to these two colleagues, one was in metadata, and the other one, he's like me, he's a general librarian, but he does everything, tri-li. So he's adult, YA, and children.
Okay.
He voiced his opinion. He's like, why are all the books just about the conflict? Like, where is the rest of the literature?
Yes.
So when he put it in that regard, I was like, oh, maybe I didn't think of it that way. I was like, oh,
Mm.
maybe that's why I was so put off by the list, because not only was it a short list, it was really just focused on conflict and the Middle East conflict. It doesn't even really talk about Muslims in America or the history of it here or and it was true. I was like, wow, again, like I was just like, oh, thank God I'm working with him today, because he was really he's really an expressive person, and every time I work with him on something, he or go to a training, he asks really great questions. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad. Like I felt like it was fated. So then fast forward to this past week, I was doing some shelf maintenance. Like this is really rare that I'm able to like do things like shelf read. But I found a book with a spine label that said Jewish interests. And I thought, well, where's the rest of it? We don't even have this section here. Where is this book from? Where did this label come from? And where's the rest? So I thought, like, what's going on? Like that girl, going back to that one girl who was upset, like, where is our stuff? Where are our displays? Where is our support for our Muslim community? I just kind of I have these questions and I don't know, like, I'm wondering where it is because I'm just not seeing it in the same way. And I looked, I was like, do we even like, we don't have, that was the only book I found with that spine label too, by the way. So I don't know where that book came from. If it came from a different branch collection that sort of landed in our branch, maybe a patron put it there. I don't know. I mean, it really got me like speculating, like, what is this? Because in our branch, we don't have a section for any studies like that. We have, fiction that's divided into mystery, romance, large print. We have a short story collection. We have a horror collection of classics. We have DVDs, but we don't have like a religious interest section. And if we did, I certainly wouldn't advocate for one.
Mm-hmm.
One book from one religion sitting on our shelf in the middle of a world conflict. So, that's what's happening in my world. And like, I really haven't said anything because I'm not sure what to say yet. Like, I really am looking for, again, I don't want anything I say, because I'm new in my system too. So I just want to be careful about what I'm saying it, what I'm saying, when I'm saying it, and how I'm saying it. Plus, like, I want to be able to present it somehow. Like, hey, what does this mean? Like, I'm not accusing anyone, but why? Why? What is this? So, but it's also become more important because one of our branches closed, and we now have two Muslim people who work in our branch, and they're mom and daughter, which I just learned that, and they're phenomenal. The young lady, the daughter, I already like absolutely adored her. I was like, oh, she's so great. Thank God we have her. But her mom is amazing. And this week there was an incident where a woman was calling her, a patron was calling her a witch. She was like, I want to complain. Who is this witch with the scarf? And I was like, excuse me, that's our colleague. She's a professional and she does really good work. If you have a complaint, you're more than welcome to do that. So here's the manager's card. And the reason I gave her the manager's card is that complaint will go nowhere because this person does great work. So I just like the whole thing just left such a, and then I talked to my colleague. I was like, hey, come here. So we went into the sorting room and I said, listen, that lady asked me for your name. I didn't give it to her. I made up a name. I just want you to know that like I made up this name and that, like, do you have something that you want to be called? But one of the things she did is she grabbed my hand and put it on her heart. And she's like, don't worry, we're all just taking care of each other. And I was like, I'm doing my best. If you want me to approach it a different way, tell me. But that, I mean, like, this is like her first week working with us. And it was it was horrible. I'm like, but I had that conversation with her. Like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to say when that happens? And I don't care about that lady's complaint. She was horrible.
Yeah.
It's
That
a lot.
whole scenario you just get, it is a lot. That's a lot to take in. You touched on so many great points. Something that you specifically mentioned about how you were doing the book display and the list wasn't long, and you and your colleagues acknowledged or realized that it was all about conflict in the Middle East, and you pointed out how it really wasn't very relevant or talking about American Muslims and our experiences and histories here. I'd like to make a point with that because you're very spot on with that. The gap within the collections, it's not even a gap. It's like it's just missing ultimately to show American Muslims lived experiences today here. Uh, the challenges may be different, and it's not that you can't have other perspectives or Muslims from other places, but when it's only showing conflict, it paints a picture that that's all there is instead of showing the peacefulness and how we operate. Why were there no books explaining scenarios of your experiences with Muslim co-workers who actually work there? So we talk a lot about the missing gap for patrons. Very rarely are we talking about the just disparaging gap for Muslim librarians. it's a whole additional world that should be touched on. And I'm so happy that you were at least able to have an experience to see what sometimes happens to even librarians in the profession just because they're Muslim. What about the patrons who just walk? And that's in a professional setting. Imagine what's happening when you're walking down the street. Imagining what's happening when she's on her way to work and when she's leaving work. So all these things, you know, not that everything is negative, but libraries should have access to literature that Muslims can see themselves positively and non-Muslims or people who are not Muslim can see Muslims in a positive light. Conflict happens all around the world. It's not only Muslims, but the literature should still express all perspectives and experiences of Muslims and everyone else too, but we're specifically talking about Muslims. And I think it's saddening that you couldn't even properly do a display. You're not the only library who has this problem. Many libraries that I talk to say, well, I tried to do this, or that, and we didn't have enough to even do it. And so when those things happen, I just sometimes wonder what happens from there. Are we advocating to say, we don't even have enough books with variety to do this display? Do you feel that authentic Muslim representation is important, not just for Muslim patrons, but for the broader library community?
Absolutely. I don't think that, I mean, professionally, I don't think anyone can be an effective person in their role. I don't think you can be an effective teacher or an effective librarian unless you have perspective and you know who you're teaching and who you're helping. I don't think you can be a doctor
Mm,
or you can be, any kind of doctor, a medical doctor, a psychologist, unless you understand people's values and cultures. And again, it's not about knowing. You don't know things, but you should have insight. You should have perspective. We need that. I'm craving it. So since we have met, one of the things I have done is I know you shared your book list. We did a few. We did our plan for the workshops. So for me, I'm a fiction reader and I've read a few of the fiction YA books because, again, we have a big Muslim community in our neighborhood and in New York City. So for me, it's really, there's a mosque a few blocks from here. So I pass it and, it's really important. One night I was coming home and they're like on a corner. They had actually blocked off one of the corners and they were just hanging out outside. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I just crossed the street and walked home. But there were people that were like, oh, what are you doing? And I'm like, just leave them alone. If this was a Roman Catholic church, would you feel that way? If this was, a Greek Orthodox church, would anyone care? No, probably not.
mhm,
So, these are things that I've just seen in the last few weeks and months, and it bothers me. I've been doing searches on more Muslim artists, Muslim authors, Muslim leaders, politicians, yeah, all of it. So it's really, and now we have Mandami as our mayor elect, and I'm really proud of that because this city really needed something different. So it's time that people who represent the city reflect the city.
mm. Very good points. You mentioned something a little bit back, how you're new in your library system and you're still figuring out the best route on how to address what you're observing throughout the system. And what you're saying is you need something such as the Islamic Library Association, a base where perspectives, ideas, trainings, a space to discuss these types of things specifically. As a librarian, there's tons and tons of different committees that talks about, different types of intellectual freedoms, equity, diversity, inclusion, all sorts of different types of committees to discuss the concerns and needs of specific groups. The Islamic Library Association is for that space specifically when we need to discuss the needs and concerns of Muslim patrons and librarians. So that's part of why we do this, to have these conversations, to hear about what's happening, because they're, like you're saying, what you experienced, you know about that, but does the majority know about it? Are there going to be any actions behind it to improve situations like this? And this is where knowledge comes. And as librarians, I really feel, like you said, you can't be a good librarian, you can't be a good teacher, can't be a good doctor without having the intention of trying to truly serve your community. Has to be there. And the community is everyone, not only the people who look just like yourself as an individual. And you have to take the time to become aware of who's around you in order to meet their needs. You don't have to believe everything, you don't have to agree with everything. And something else, how you mentioned, oh, there was only one Jewish book that you had seen. Someone had mentioned to me how they didn't believe that religion belongs in libraries. I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be like holy scriptures and all that, but many libraries have a whole Christian fiction section. That's not preachy religion. However, a Christian can see certain values represented throughout that book. It's not like conversion material. So, Islamic literature or Islamic faith based literature, Muslim literature, however you want to word it, same concept as Christian fiction. And it's across all generations, adult, children, and young adult. So I think it's important to really recognize the gap, the need, and for librarians to really not just, like you said, like a general librarian, but I'm talking about people in positions to make change have to acknowledge the need for accurate and equitable representation of the entire communities, and that includes Muslims. So, do you have any ideas on how that can be improved regarding tokenism when it comes to Muslims and libraries?
Absolutely. So using the example that I used, I think for me, one of the things that was so off-putting about finding that book is that we don't have any kind of like religious interest display. So I really was like, where did this book initially come from? Which I can go to the record and see, but again, it didn't really show me much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in favor of having a religious interest section so long as it has more than one religion, more than one
Yes.
book. One of the things I said when I was a teen librarian at a different system was it's Black History Day all day, every day. Okay, let's not forget that it is not February. It is, like the same thing with Hispanic Heritage Month. It is not 1 or 2 months out of the year. It is critical that we are spending some of our time looking into these histories, looking into the realities, and acknowledging the pain and suffering of a whole race of people who have no ancestry because their ancestors were ripped from their home and brought over here. So, that's what the diasporas really highlight is how people migrated from around the world, not by choice. So I think the most important thing is remembering that we're not celebrating months. We're not just doing DEI. This is about people in our community. And I live in New York City where I see everybody every day. Every single day I see someone of a different race, a different religion, a different background, culture. People from all over the world come to this city. I pass them every single day. Everyone has a struggle. Everyone is a human being with feelings, thoughts, experiences. We have all suffered something. So those books in our library should absolutely represent every single person on the planet. It doesn't matter. And I think if we're going to do things like displays, they have to be equal. They have to be fair. They have to represent everyone. So if we have, one thing my library doesn't have is an urban fiction section. So there was one week that like 2 or 3 patrons came in and they were like, "Where's your urban fiction section?" And I'm like, "We don't have one, but I did prepare a list. I have a list of authors and I can tell you what books we have here in this collection." That's what I did after the first person came in. But that wasn't the first person. In the previous weeks or months, other people have been like, "Where's your urban fiction section?" So what I did was, look, we don't have it. However, what can I do? I can adjust what I know and what I can learn, right? I'm a librarian. I can do research. We have 62 locations in our system. We can do more than just, "Hey, I don't know, we don't have that, but we can put it on hold." That, yes, that's an option, and I always offer that. But I also went out of my way to find out who has the Black heritage sections in their libraries. I know at least 3 of them. I went and printed out a list of Black authors who are notable for urban fiction. I started to read some of those books, not just because if someone comes in and says, "Have you read this?" I can be like, "Oh yeah, I like that book," or, "Yeah, I wasn't a fan of that book, but I really like the author's writing," or whatever. I also started to just do what I could in that area of making sure that when people walk through the door, I'm not just saying hello and that's the end of my interaction with them, that they feel welcome. And one way they feel welcome is having someone on the staff who knows where to find things, how to find things, and things, and then also making it relevant to them. I want to be able to have conversations with patrons about what they're reading, and I want to be able to say like, "Oh, I haven't read that, but I read this. Have you read that?" I don't want to just be this person who's like, "Oh, I haven't read any of that. Yeah, I don't know. Meh, meh. I don't know. I don't know. We can put it on hold for you. Yeah, sure. Cool. Here you go. Bye-bye. Thanks. Never see you again, I'm sure." You know what I'm saying? Like, that's awful. Like, so yeah, to answer your question, I think it's important to remember that it's not about like months or days or weeks. It really is about celebrating life, celebrating people, and looking for ways where we can connect. I'm trying to remember, you popped up on my LinkedIn. I'm going to use us as an example. You popped up on my LinkedIn and I was like, "Oh, the Islamic Library Association. That's cool. I didn't even know that existed." And here we are, having really open, vulnerable conversations. Even before this call, I said, "Please correct me if I misspeak or if I mispronounce something. Please let me know if there's something you want elaboration on, or you have questions, or whatever. Like, let's have these conversations, because this is exactly what I'm hoping for, that people can just sit down, find what makes us connected instead of finding what makes us different." There's value in both of those things, like who we are as people, as women, as human beings, as librarians. Those things connect us. Who we are religiously, that does separate us a little bit, but we can find common ground in that if we can have open conversations about what that means for us. Who are we, right? Like, we're learning things about each other today on this call. And I love that. That's what we should feel closer, not further apart.
Correct.
And a library collection should absolutely do that. And again, buildings are small, they're physical spaces, right? Like, not every library can have everything, but that's fine. The people who occupy that building should be the resource then. And nobody should hesitate going to a person and saying, "Hey, I can't find what I need on the shelf. You're my resource. What do you suggest?"
Definitely, we did talk about if there's questions asked either way, and I appreciate that. And it actually feels good as a Muslim librarian to know that there are people. I mean, obviously, I know that, but it's good to be reminded that there are librarians who are not Muslim who just recognize humanity. Everything is not even just, "Oh, Muslims, Muslims, Muslims." No, it's just, we're human. We have same basic needs as everyone else, and respect is part of that. Inclusion is part of that. Acknowledgement is part. Those are innate needs of human beings, especially within their own communities. It is nice how we met on LinkedIn. It is all coming together, and we are here today, and it's amazing. It's definitely a representation of how openness and willingness and the desire to be a whole as far as community, not excluding, or even using the word neutral is important. Oftentimes in libraries, I hear the word neutral and neutrality a lot, and I feel that neutral can sometimes unintentionally uphold bias towards dominant voices, because to be neutral is ultimately kind of means to be silent and, oh, I'm abiding by this policy. But what about the humanity in that? Is this policy immoral, or does this policy allow you to be biased because you pick and choose who you really want to uphold this policy with? Like you were saying initially in the beginning, I'm normally a stickler on having your ID or a library card, and I'm gonna universally do that. And I even have an exception to the rule. But that's not being neutral to me. To me, that's being equal. And as a librarian in different types of libraries and things like that, do you have any advice that you would like to give to librarians across all positions, really, to actively become allies, to avoid relying on neutrality?
I think it's interesting. So you just said that for you, neutrality is bias, and I love that. I thought for me, like neutrality is about being passive. And I think you just said it yourself. It's about being active. Be proactive. Seek it out. Don't wait for things to happen. Don't wait for things to happen to be like, oh my God, this happened and I didn't know what to do. Have the conversations in advance. I just think it's really important for us. Again, I'm trying to remember exactly, like, you just kind of popped up on my LinkedIn. I reached out to you and I was like, hey, let's have, can we chat? Can we get to know each other? That was an attempt for me to be proactive, and to see if I can build a rapport and a relationship with someone who is very knowledgeable, right? Like that, for me, you're the Islamic Library Association founder, you're a Muslim woman, and you're a librarian. Like it's not about like ticking boxes. It's about having a resource that I can come to. So I feel safe coming to you and saying, hey, Khalisah, I have a question. I don't know if I've even done that yet, but I know we've had really rich conversations about resources, presence, what we can do, what I can do differently. So when people make mistakes in life, what do? We hope that someone has seen that or observed that someone is brave enough to say, hey, I noticed that you did it like this, or you said this, and, do you mind some feedback? Can I suggest trying it a different way? Right? Because then we can become aware of our subconscious biases and or neutrality. We can be aware of our neutrality and our inaction, and we can adjust that behavior. Some people really just don't know any better because they were raised in an environment where they don't have to know any better, or they don't have to think about it. That's true. So my experience in my walk of life, I am a lot more sensitive and I'm more aware of differences in people because I grew up around it. And I also grew up in Puerto Rico. I was a white kid growing up in Puerto Rico. So even though I am half Puerto Rican, I'm still white. So that has also shaped a lot of how I see the world and how I see other people. I don't look at skin color and think like, oh, this person must be that. So the advice I have, not just for librarians, but especially for librarians, and this is not my philosophy. This is one that I learned in my new system and I love. I adapted it not just in my profession, but in my life, is work toward that. Yes. Work toward the yes. We have policies, and I will give you another example. I love this example. So a few months ago, our policy was 20 pages free printing a day. You get 20 black and white pages free a day. There's this one guy who comes in and he used to get 40. So this is what I did. This is my philosophy, is that it's fair to share what the policy is. Hey guy. And he's a white man. Hey guy, like our policy states that it's 20 pages free a day. So if you want to go on the computers, you can print 20 pages and then we can do remote printing so you can get 40 pages. My manager interrupted me and she said, no, just do it for him. She can't. And then she said to him, oh, she can't do it. I can do it because I'm the manager. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, wow. Like you just made it so much harder for all the other branches and all the other people who don't honor that, exception, because each branch is specific. So, and again, I wasn't saying no to the guy. I was going to print it. I just wanted to state our policy, because if he goes other places and they say no, he's going to be like, well, they do it for me over there. Of course we do, because we make a courtesy. So then after that, like clockwork, we increased our pages to 30 pages a day. He started coming in almost daily asking for 60 pages. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this gets under my skin. This is true. So I'm like, and I don't even recite the policy anymore because he knows the policy. However, there was one day this woman came in, a Black woman. She was really frazzled. I can just see it. Like, she was everything, her behavior, her tone. She's like, I need these, she's like, like she couldn't log in the computer and she was having trouble with the document. So I was like, just one step at a time. So I went over, and when I was looking at the document, I noticed it was like 150 pages. And I looked at her and I said, hey, do you need this whole document? I was like, what is, like, this is, and I could see, like, I could read that it's a study guide. And she goes, yeah, I have my daughter in high school. She's prepping. I just wanted to prep for this. I was like, you know what? Let's just do remote printing, and I'm going to print the document for you. I said, is double-sided okay so we can save on some pages? She's like, what? But the policy? I said, yeah, forget the policy. We make exceptions. And I said, I think you just need not any hassle. You look like you need a break. I was like, you look really frazzled right now. I was like, pardon me saying that. I was like, you just seem really stressed out. You don't need this aggravation. We make exceptions. If you need 150 pages printed today, please, let's just find the path of least resistance. Let's get you home to your kids. Let's get you home. Go get a cup of tea. Go start your dinner. I saw everything in her body just go. After that, I haven't seen her in a while, but after that, I saw her a couple times since. She comes up to me with a smile. She says hello. She talks to me about her kids. Like, when I tell you that maybe we didn't, and again, there was no conflict there. It's just, how some people, they're just stressed out. Yes. They're like, and they, and I'm like, oh, okay, what do you mean? I don't know. You're not communicating. I can't read your mind. You seem really stressed. What do you need? But she can't ask for it because there's a policy in place and she's respecting it. She didn't come in and say, hey, I know your policy is 30 pages a day. You recite it to me every time I print, but I'm just going to do double anyway. Like, my manager didn't tell her that was okay. So how would she know that? She needed to hear it too. She needed to hear that too. So that was me being proactive. That was me making the same exception for her that I do for that guy every time he comes in, whenever he comes in, and he comes in a lot more than she does. And that for me feels good because and I do it for everyone too. Like, I don't care how many pages. If you have pages, it's not my business what you're printing anyway. Even if it wasn't a study guide, it just kind of made it easier for me to say to her, like, hey, look, let's just do this. And again, she knows that she can always come to me with questions. She one other time came to me and she's like, hey, I have another pamphlet, like another study guide to print. Can I print that with you? And I was like, absolutely. Do you remember how to do remote printing? Yeah. Okay, great. So not only did I teach her how to do remote printing, and she's confident handling the computers alone by herself now because she's not frazzled. She got some guidance in that. She just needed someone to help her. And I'm proud of that because I don't think that I'm better than anyone for doing it. I just think that is my role. And that's the advice I want to give people, is just try to read people, meet them where they're at, and work toward that yes. My system allows that. They allow us to work toward that yes. So, I don't have to worry about getting in trouble for breaking that policy. And the same thing with computer time. You need more computer time? You don't have to explain to me what you're doing. If you're not doing anything gross or illegal, that is fine. You can have all the computer time. As long as nobody's waiting, I don't care anymore. In the beginning, I was a little bit more like, as a new person, I was like, oh, I don't know, you get an hour a day. Now I'm like, oh, you need another hour? There's nobody on the computers. Take 2. Yes. Take 2 more hours.
You've given some really great examples on how to actually just show that you care. I don't know why people search for differences when the similarities of being human and having basic human needs. Stress is that's got to be a basic adult thing at this point in life. So just acknowledging when or where someone may need additional help or a different type of help or and just to meet the needs. That's the role and responsibility of librarians. So you helping her like that is beyond meaningful because, like you said, she comes back, and when she does come in, she talks to you specifically and
Yep.
smiles. And when you said that, it reminded me of, I don't remember where I read it, but it's something to the effect of, with libraries specifically, when someone has a negative experience, it takes either 7 or 8 more positive experiences before they feel comfortable in that space again. The thing I think about when I read that is, well, once you get that one negative experience, how likely are you to go back? And if you do go back, you're already going in on the defense.
Yep.
But when things such as how you responded to her, and you said, oh, and she just melted, and you could see the appreciation, and now she's coming back less stressed, she's talking to you. Yes, she knows how to remote print. I'm just saying, I've seen many times when librarians, oh, this group of people, they don't use the library. Well, how does a whole group of people not use the library? That's when you have to start looking within. What's going on that there's no such thing as a whole group of people who don't need the library. We understand as librarians that that's not even possible. So then you have to reflect, and that's where I think many librarians struggle with reflection on how they treat people, the policies that they uphold, and when they choose to bend them. All these kinds of things really have to be taken into consideration. And I think librarians, for the type of work we do, we really have to acknowledge the mental side of people as well as the behavioral side. And most times they interconnect and intertwine. And I know you do that type of work within libraries and even outside of libraries. So, how do you feel that mental and behavioral health equity and even cultural inclusion intersect for your work within libraries and the creative communities that you're a part of?
My fundamental belief is that everyone is suffering. We're all in pain. I mean, like, the best interaction would be one where a patron who's stressed out notices I'm also stressed out or exhausted, just mentally drained
Mm-hmm.
from being a public servant, which I hate that word, but essentially that is what we are. Right? Like, it's more the best interaction would be a more symbiotic where it's like, oh, I recognize you as a person and you must be really tired. And I recognize you as a person and you must be really tired. That would be the best case scenario. And I do have some of those, but rare. That happens with time, right? That happens as I build relationships. But each and every person that comes in and needs something, I have to recognize that they're in pain. And there's this, I'm thinking about this one patron. She's a white woman. She just goes off. I mean, she insults us. She says names. She starts yelling. She'll throw papers. I mean, and I think she's an obnoxious person. She waits until like 2 minutes before we're supposed to close and set the alarm. And she's sitting there like scanning her papers and yelling at us that it's our fault that she can't get this done. And I'm like, you were here for hours. You were reading the newspaper. I saw you. You could have done this first. I would never say that to her, but in those moments,
You
I
know.
just don't say anything. Yeah. Right? Like, come on. I have eyes. I have degrees, and it's not an assumption. It's like critical thinking, right? It's problem solving. Like, da, 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 da. I see all these different pieces. You might be a procrastinator. So, again, mental health equity is really important because I don't know what this woman's going through at all. I just don't know why she's so volatile, why she chooses to do the important things in the very last minutes. I think that there's a sense of enjoyment in being a volatile person. It's the truth. I think that she is raised in a place where it's okay for her to have these outbursts and they're acceptable and she can get away with it. Nobody's ever going to be like, oh, that lady, let's write her up. It hasn't happened yet. Since I've only been there 10 months and she's yelled at least 3 of us. And like, she just goes below the belt and you're just like, lady, why are you doing that? Luckily, I work with people who none of us take it personal. And I think we just recognize she's suffering. And that really is it. So how do they intersect? I think that that woman comes to mind because that's just a moment where we cannot take it personal. It is not about us. It's not about our work. It's not about our professional decisions in that moment to close the library and say, I'm sorry, you got to go. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, we learn just to like let her have her outbursts and just hope that she leaves without any further incident. And I think one of the things I do that I'm really working on, this is something that I've become more aware of in the last year or two, is that I have this innate desire to like, why are you like this? What made you this way? Like, how could this happen? I have to like remember it's not my place to understand. It's just not my place to understand. I don't have to understand things. And again, as a critical thinker, as a seeker of information, a lot of me is like, I have questions. My background is in psychology. So a lot of this all kind of, again, I'm an artist. I'm like, ooh, tell me more. Tell me more. What's between the lines, right? I'm a reader. So it is just in my nature to be curious and to wonder. But when I find myself going down that rabbit hole and taking it personal, I have to say like, hey, I don't need to understand this. I need to accept this. So when I see that woman, I pretty much avoid her. If I am not on desk, I stay off desk when she's there. If she asks me a question, I try very hard just to listen to the question. And I'm like, oh no, let me not be nervous that she's going to go off on me because I can't answer her question. So I just have to remember I'm a person. I'm doing what I can. And I have boundaries. That's fair. And I have respect. And I have honor for this woman's humanity that I don't understand, but I accept. So that's where it starts to intersect. I'm not perfect. I have made mistakes. I wish there are situations I have handled better. But I can't do anything about what's done. I can adjust my behavior. And the best quote I heard recently is, I can't control the wind, but I can adjust my sails. And that comes from Dolly Parton.
Oh, I do
So
like that quote. You said how you're a person. Yes. And so when we're talking about mental health, you have to safeguard your mental health as well. I know as a librarian, dealing with the public like that can really take a mental toll. And you have to really be able to inwardly care for yourself. The same way I said we have to inwardly reflect on how we're behaving, your mental state has a lot to do with that as well. So ultimately, what we're asking from patrons, we have to ask of ourselves as well. Uh, and you were saying you can recognize her humanity and that she's struggling. And I think that's really great. And you've mentioned so many examples, which I love and appreciate them so much. But you really are an example of an ally. And I think in these types of positions, librarianship, no matter what your position or title is, like you saying, teachers, these types of positions and professions, you have to ultimately be an ally to improve the way things are done or have been done or the direction that it's going. We have such a responsibility to improve the community because we're in those spaces and have that power and responsibility at the same time. It kind of goes hand in hand. Let's say you could create the perfect library as an ally. What would that look like for you?
ooh, I think no, I would just like have a day or a week or some kind of, I would just open it up to the community and say like, donate books you want to see on the shelf. Just bring your favorite books. And if again, that's like, this is the dream. The reality is, bring me your book lists because we would buy them. I wouldn't want people to pay. But again, a lot of people donate books because they really want to see these books on the shelf. I think for me, you get the idea, is that I would just open it up and say, who are you? What do you want me to represent? I would want to read a lot of these books too, but I don't have to. I don't have to read everything. I don't believe in censorship. I don't believe just because someone else is like, oh, this is dirty, that like, or this, I don't agree with this. Like, well, that's what we're here for. You don't have to agree with it. You have to accept it. You don't have to understand. You have to accept it. Acceptance, right? Like, so that would be ideal for me, is where the patrons are looking at the book list. Like, I would have loved to sit down with my current Muslim coworker and say, look at this book list. What do you think? What should we get? And she's not a librarian, but for me, there is no distinction. Wherever I work, I'm like, we're all librarians. Even though I know technically you have to have a degree to be a librarian. It doesn't
But
matter
that's
to
how
me.
most patrons see it too. They don't know who has
Yeah.
their MLIS or not. If you're behind that desk or if you're working in the stacks somewhere, you're a librarian.
It's
Uh,
true. And I
and
believe that. I think that to an extent, that is,
yes,
it's interesting because people think libraries are about books, and it's like, oh boy, we are not about books anymore. We are about resources. We have the databases, the language learning, the LinkedIn learning, the creative learning. Like we have, the archives, and it just goes, it's so extensive. So that's really what the degree is in, information, not books. But I think,
yes.
yeah, and I think just again, if I'm going to try to make the library inclusive for patrons, why not make it inclusive for my coworkers? Let's look at this book list together. Have you read any of these books? Do you care about any of these books? Do you know any of these Muslim authors and what they're saying? It's about, if we're doing inclusivity for the community, that includes us too.
Yes, yes. Inclusivity is not selective inclusion. That's no longer inclusion. That's exclusion. I think we need to recognize that as librarians. And not always, when I'm saying librarians, yes, obviously people who's working front desk, but I'm talking about people who's really making those decisions, who's making those collection development policies. You know, how are you allowing your budget to be used? Because I've also heard the argument, oh, well, Muslim books cost a little bit more. Okay. Well, that's not an excuse to me.
Yeah, I don't believe
Uh,
that. Art books cost a lot of money. Have you seen those coffee table art books? Like Monet, that's like a $200 book. So don't tell me that, like, yeah, sorry, as an artist, I can definitely make an argument that's garbage.
I know that. I mean, it can't be a block at every door. Then that's when it's time to start really reflecting. Even when like the diversity audit databases that libraries have access to, you're aware that this is a huge gap. Why is that not addressed in your managers meetings or a policy or everything? Doesn't have to be policy. We are lacking in the A, B, and C realms. We need to focus on this on the next round of purchases. We need to try to close these gaps in these three areas right here. You know, oh, we have this much in the budget for children's books. Let's make sure we use this amount of money for these specific areas or whatever. We have this much in the YA budget. However it doesn't take rocket science. And think about how much those databases cost, such as Library IQ and things like that. Those things
Yep.
cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and you have a built-in diversity audit section in there, and you're not working on filling it. And that is what brings more questions and concerns from me. I think more people should question that. You know, you're aware. Did you just disregard that? Did you not even click that as what you're looking for to see the percentage within your collections of the system? So it's a lot that could be done, and it takes people such as yourself that really helps move that along to help bring awareness. No matter how big or small it is, it all helps in making sure that we can do a lot better. And as a librarian, I think librarians need accountability because we have like the finance department. Okay, finance department's great, but every year you're getting audited, and they're going to go through your finances to make sure they know where every single penny went. Great. Okay, you may have a facilities department, and they may fix minor um, things that need to be fixed through the library system. But if something's too big, a third party is going to come in and repair it and fix it or whatever. That's still a different third party coming in to oversee those issues. So my point in saying that is there's accountability on every aspect of librarianship except collections.
agree to that. And if I could just share one example that popped up when you were talking about that. We have a little display shelf. No one really does much with it. It's kind of like in this awkward place. And in the beginning of the holiday, I was like, cool, I'm going to do a holiday display. So I did our collection. It is all Christmas. There is no Kwanzaa or Hanukkah or and there's one Chinese New Year book sitting there because our collection doesn't have physical books that are anything else. And then I was like, oh no, like I emailed my other colleagues and I was like, hey everyone, I did the thing. I put books there just so that it's full. I said, but I don't, it doesn't represent anything other than Christmas holiday, which is a Christian holiday. But again, like you're talking and that popped up and I'm like, ooh, that's relevant. But I noticed it too. And I said, please, swap out the books. I looked at cookbooks, craft books, anything that would represent other winter holidays. And we don't have anything. And I was like, oh gosh, that's, and it's still like that. I didn't know what to do. So you see, this is an example where I'm not proactive and I'm not sure. I'm also working on other things. So for me, sometimes it does become an afterthought, but every time I pass it, I'm like, ugh, ugh. Every time I see it, I'm like, geez, Kelly. But again, for me, it was just one of those things where I'm like, where are our books? Where are where's our religion section, right? Our religious interests. Where are our holiday books that represent other cultures and religions?
Yeah. So I think you brought up some amazing points, and I love it. You've really brought a lot of insight that I think is very helpful for librarians and people who are not librarians.
I just want to say thank you so much. I want to thank you because when we talk about allyship and advocacy, I know that self advocacy is exhausting. And I appreciate that you have made yourself a resource for people like me who just have questions, who are uninformed, and who really just need a safe space to ask questions. So I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. I know you're working hard. And I want to let you and everyone that you work with know that if you ever need anything, I'm here for it. So I thank you so much. I love our conversations and I really appreciate you, like us finding each other on LinkedIn. I really appreciate all the time that you've made for me to just have these really open and insightful and sweet conversations. You're just amazing and I admire you. I thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm happy that I can help. And you are a wonderful librarian, a beautiful person. And that's really where it starts because you bring who you are with you to work. So I really appreciate your time and you know how to reach me. And thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good day.
Take care.
Bye. Join the Islamic Library Association, and together we can shape a more inclusive future for literature.